Hey guys, welcome back. Episode 9 of the Bar Talk at Gene's Place podcast. We have another special guest this week. This is Brant, my son. Welcome.
Good to be here. I'm very excited.
Good. Happy to have you. This is going to be an interesting conversation, maybe a little bit different than what we've done in the past, which is fine. So I'm going to let you just take it from here because you sort of gave me the idea of what you wanted to talk about. So we're just gonna roll with that. You just start it off, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Okay. You and I talked about this earlier this week, and it all stemmed from poll numbers that came out. I saw them on Twitter earlier this week.
You talking about presidential poll numbers?
Yes. Okay. So to be even more specific regarding approval ratings for the president.
Yeah.
And so the tweet that I saw was particularly highlighting Gen Z voters. So in this specific poll, it was people or voters under 30,
okay,
and their approval of the president.
Which, if I may, you can correct me if I'm wrong. He actually had a pretty good showing during the election with that age group. Am I correct? Especially males.
Yes. Yeah. I brought my homework. So
okay, sorry.
All right. So specifically for 19 to 29-year-olds, so again, like that under 30 demographic that I was talking about.
Yeah.
So in 2020, Joe Biden polled that group, those Gen Z voters. He won them by 25 points.
Wow. Okay.
So 25% more Gen Z voters voted for Biden in 2020 than they did for Trump.
Yeah.
But in 2024, Harris only won by +4 percentage points.
That's a significant change.
So yeah, so 19 points is a big, shift.
That's huge. Because you're talking about for those of you who may or may not follow political polls and what have you, they, a lot of times you'll see, especially this early polls in the last election were very close in the initial, numbers that came out early polls. Yes. And then they, so when you're talking about 19 points, that's a big number.
Yeah, that's a big swing. And then so for 2024, so like I said, Kamala Harris won the Gen Z vote by 4 percentage points. But when you break it down by gender, she won Gen Z women by 14 points, and Trump won Gen Z men by 17 points. So basically, the whole point of this episode, or what I wanted to at least get us started off with, was that there's a huge gap in what young men are voting for and what young women are voting for. And it seems like they're getting pushed further and further to the extremes, right? So conservative men are going right wing, liberal women are going left wing, and the two anecdotal things that I have about this are, as far as going right wing with Trump and going left wing in the other direction, is obviously for the people who follow politics, it's not as big national news as presidential or Senate numbers, but Mamdani in New York City is
running for mayor.
Of New York City. His polling numbers right now, as of 2 days ago, he looked like he was going to win. He had a 39% chance of winning, which doesn't sound very high, but when you compare it to Andrew Cuomo, who dropped out of the Democrat primary, he has 21%. Curtis Sliwa, who is he's the Republican who runs every freaking time. He's polling at 18%, and who's the current mayor, Eric Adams, is only polling at 9%. So it looks really good for Mamdani. And the reason why
by the way, Cuomo says he's gonna he's planning to potentially re-enter that race as a third-party candidate.
Yes, as an independent. Right.
Yeah.
But so the reason that Mamdani is so interesting in that race is because some of the things that he's talking about, government-run grocery stores.
Yep.
And so that the government, the New York City government, can control prices so that lower class voters, or I mean not voters, just so that people have access to cheap groceries and managing those groceries, which obviously, if you watch Fox News at all, they hate that idea. They're like, "Oh, that's socialism," and we can't
I mean,
have the government
on the
controlling things like
surface,
that.
it is.
Yes. Well, right. The idea of
But
socialism is that the government has control over the markets and like direct control.
correct.
Obviously,
Yeah, state-owned
state-owned industry.
retail industry. It doesn't have to be retail. It can be whatever. Soviet Union, every manufacturing plant, railroad, bomb-making plant, airplane plant,
Right.
Whatever was owned by the state.
Right. So, and he's been very Mamdani has been very open and honest that like he wants there to be more government control in New York City over these types of things, and he sees that as the means to an end of making New York City more prosperous, which obviously people on the left, especially people on the more extreme left, they do see socialism as an option. And this is like where I'm going with the extremes, is that is the system we have in place now working still? So that's I think because of that question, that's why people look for new things.
I want to say one thing in response to his poll numbers, and what I do know, and I haven't dug too deeply into, is it Mamdani?
Yes.
Okay, what he is saying, but I've read and heard from others some excerpts of things where he has. One of the things I think that is resonating with voters in New York City is he is talking about nothing but New York City.
Right.
You've got other candidates out there that are talking about the war with the Soviet with Russia and Ukraine. Sorry, slip of the tongue there. The Israel Hamas conflict, and this is a guy that, regardless of whether you agree with that method or methodology that of what he's talking about, he is saying this is what I care about, and I want to make this city as good as it can be.
Right.
And that I think that is resonating with people.
Well, and I think that's why Trump was largely successful, is because his whole message was we have to put America first, and it doesn't matter what other countries are doing because
now apparently it does.
Well, it does, but it's like the whole America First agenda or idea of America First. That the reason that it propelled Trump so far forward, especially with lower and middle class voters, is because they're the ones who are struggling the most. That they go, why are we sending $3 billion to whichever country for X amount of things that I don't think that matters. I don't think that funding these social programs in Africa, whether it's, we spend so much money on vaccinating children in Africa, which I'm not saying is like not a good thing, but it's like, should that be on the American taxpayer's dime?
Right.
Or should that be funded through, nonprofits who care about
and we could talk about
those issues?
We could talk about the level of money that is being spent by our federal government on things that are not based in this country for hours.
Right.
Rand Paul's famous for his Christmas time release of all of these stupid ass programs that are being funded by the federal government.
Right.
And, things like we're going to do a study on squirrels to find out if they really are homosexual. And that sounds silly, and I'm not saying that's a real thing, but there are things like that have happened that are on the budget.
And it may not have been directly like the government is earmarking, $40 million to research the mating habits of North American squirrels, but it's like that money is going towards institutions, whether it be universities or research labs, and that's what they're using the money for.
And that keeps people employed,
right,
within that department or within that university,
right.
But so one of the things that I think is along these lines, it's very interesting, and I don't think we want to sit here and talk about the budget or the money. Do we want to talk about the money we spend on stupid shit?
We can get into it a little bit, yeah.
But I
how just up until a couple of weeks ago, we were sending $40 million a week to the Taliban.
Well, Tim Burchett was largely responsible for getting that done. That particular topic, to me, is one that's very interesting, and it is also infuriating because of the events that have happened over the last 24 years since 9/11. And some people that watch this may not remember that or have the context that I did. I know you're a person that doesn't have the same context on it that I do because of your age. But these are the people. I just want to remind people that this is the group that we said was responsible for flying airplanes into the Pentagon and to the Twin Towers and costing almost 3,000 people their lives, right. Americans their lives. And we were all just up in arms, and everybody was pissed off. And that brought a whole cultural shift related to a certain ethnic group over a period of time, which has cooled off quite a bit. Mm-hmm. But that you're right. I mean, sending that money to, and this isn't like, we can sit here and debate whether or not, money that goes to Israel gets filtered through some terrorist groups. Well, but the Taliban is a known terrorist group.
Yes. There's
not a person who doesn't know that.
Right. And now, and so for anybody who's not caught up on like foreign affairs, we spent 20 years in Afghanistan because after the towers fell, 9/11, we sent Green Berets like almost immediately to Afghanistan to go, and their mission was to go hunt down Osama bin Laden.
And weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, that came 2 years later in Iraq, the invasion of Iraq, which they said was related to
correct
9/11, but it wasn't actually related to 9/11, and that's how it got drawn into this catch-all term of the global war on terror.
Right.
But we spent 20 years in Afghanistan, trillions of dollars, thousands more of American soldiers died over there fighting these people. And now was it in October of 2021 or August of 21 that the Americans officially made the withdrawal?
It was August.
August of 21?
Yes, that was the whole Abigate thing. And
yes.
That was August of 21.
And so with the United States officially withdrawing from Afghanistan, the government that we had installed there and that we were funding there, they kind of just rolled over onto their backs and let the Taliban take it. So now like you said, this terrorist organization, a known terrorist organization, is now the official government of Afghanistan. Following that withdrawal, at no point did anybody think, well, maybe we should stop sending money to the government. Like, we were funding the government in Afghanistan to do, like, they were trying to fund schools and hospitals and social programs to make Afghanistan more Western. But at no point did they turn off the faucet after the Taliban took control. Nobody
Correct.
Turned off the faucet and said, maybe we should stop
Correct.
Sending them this money.
And, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this particular topic, but I'm fairly well versed on this, having listened to Sarah Adams, Legend, a couple of other people talk about this. These terrorist groups, especially the Taliban, are very clever in how they present things to the world.
Yes.
And they use the guise of humanitarianism in a lot of cases, when in fact that's really not what those dollars are used for.
No.
So
at least not anymore. I mean, I think that's when we were sending that money over there.
Maybe initially. At
least that was the hope that that's what those dollars were being used for. But ever since the Taliban took control, they've opened up. Forgive me, I don't know all the numbers, but they've opened up these terrorist training camps, and they've trained thousands of terrorists, soldiers.
Yep.
And then so these people would flock to Afghanistan for training to get weapons, and then they would ship them out to mainly Syria, where up until, again, just a couple of months ago, where the government in Syria officially fell, like, they just created this pipeline of, you send them here, we'll train them, arm them, and we'll ship them off to Syria, and they'll fight against the Assad government there. And now the terrorists have won in Syria. Now, similar, I don't know what the name of that government is, but now Syria is under a new regime, very similar to the Taliban, where it is a terrorist organization who controls the country now.
Right.
I think it would be very naive to think, or very ignorant to the fact that, like, definitely American dollars were going to training those soldiers that then
It would be, and
to
in this particular, these dollars are not a whole lot different than some of the other dollars that are getting sent overseas for funding wars, funding bad actors, etc. I mean, and this is not new. This is stuff that's been going on for a long time. But to I want to rewind to your point about what. Talking about Donald Trump and the America First thing, and then sort of, I was drawing that correlation between that idea of putting America first, and then you've got this guy running for mayor of New York City that is saying, New York City first, kind of same idea, and it seems to resonate with people. And I think your point was that message from Donald Trump in the 2024 election resonated with young males, under the age of 30, male voters. And on another related topic, I think it's interesting what we've seen happen in the last couple of weeks on the Democratic side, from the Dems over the last couple of weeks, is you are seeing Barack Obama out there again. He came out and tried and did some campaigning for Harris. I don't want to mispronounce her first name. Kamala. Campaigning for her. Well, he's now back in the spotlight again.
Yep.
Interestingly enough, I don't know if you saw this, you probably did. You might have seen the interview that Hunter Biden just did.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Okay. A lot of weird stuff. However, and he just absolutely blasted the Democratic Party leadership.
Yeah.
For basically turning their back on his father.
Yes.
But
which you can't blame him.
Yeah, I'm sure he's pissed because the gravy train ran out. But,
sure.
Well, that gravy train, he's got other gravy train stuff going on. But the point I want to make is about what Obama is talking about when it comes to the message that the Democrats have to have going forward. Because, we all know we're 6 months into the Donald Trump term. And it's been a little bit rocky for him.
Yes.
And I think some of his base is not happy with some of the decisions that have been made, the bombing in Iran, the Epstein stuff that's happening, some of the bullshit with the big, beautiful bill. So, I think his base is like sort of, there's some interesting stuff going on there. But what Obama is talking about is saying, hey, to his party, he's like, to the party leadership. And I think, whether you want to believe it or not, he is part of the party leadership at this stage of the game. He's a big time part of that group. But he's saying, hey guys, going forward, if we want to, because their message has been since Donald Trump came on the scene in 2015, just shit talking the guy, right? Yeah. Just shit talking the guy, that he's not presidential. He's a dick. He treats people badly. He treats women poorly. He's a misogynist. He's a rapist. He's a bigot. He's, I don't know.
The list goes on.
It goes on and on. Never really talking about any of the stuff that he does from an ideological or political standpoint.
Right.
And so that, and I think that had a part to play in Harris getting beat badly.
Yes. No, she
had no idea.
She got whooped.
She has no idea. And I think that's what he's saying to the party is like, guys, if you want to combat him, don't criticize his character and call him all these names and say he's an asshole. Come up with some ideas of your own and say, hey, here's what he's doing this and we don't think it's going to help the economy, but here's what we would do. Or here's our solution for border security. Here's our solution for quote unquote common sense gun control. Call it whatever you want. Pick a topic, have an idea, and think it through. Present it clearly to people so people can decide on this topic. This person believes in this. This person believes in that.
Right. Well, because it seems like ever since 2015, so now we've been dealing with it for 10 years now, is that politics used to be that way. It used to be...
You had a platform.
Right. You had
Each party had a platform.
You had two guys.
10 topics.
Right. They were like...
Or 10 issues or whatever.
I want to improve the American economy. Okay. Let's just go back to Mitt Romney and Obama. Like, Romney goes, here's how I think that, my policies would improve the economy. And then Obama presents the same thing on the economy. And then the voters get to look at those two policies and go,
yep,
I think his policy makes more sense to me, or Romney's does, whatever. And we kind of got away from that. And I think now, granted, Harris was thrown into being the presidential nominee like last second, right before the buzzer. Joe Biden drops out after that first debate. And so she had very little time to prepare. But,
But I would just want to respond to that. Then that's the party's fault. That's party leadership's fault for
because
her
they
not
should
being
have
prepared.
They should have had a game plan already in place.
And I don't think that was something that just all of a sudden happened.
No.
Like, oh, Joe can't go.
Right.
Well,
I think
she's the person.
I kind of like vaguely remember us talking about this last year after he steps down and goes, I'm not going to seek this reelection. And it was before the DNC decided that Kamala was going to be the one. But we kind of talked about it. We're like, do you think that they set Joe up for that first debate to fail? So as a reason to like, because
according to Hunter, they did.
Well, yeah. And like, it kind of looks that way because
he said he was doped up on Ambien.
Yeah. And that's crazy to say, but but I think, unfortunately, I do think that they set him up, and because if they just pulled him aside and they were like, he's not going to run again, then it might look like the party machine is just doing whatever it wants to do. They needed at least to have something to point to and go, see,
he's not well.
He's not well.
He's not well. So.
Which no offense to him, I mean, he still was the president of the United States, and I respect the office of the president, but like he wasn't well the entire time.
Yeah, he was not well. You're right. No, unfortunately, you're right. He wasn't well. So, and you're right. She wasn't prepared. That's leader. And I think that in a way, that's kind of what Obama is also saying. Like in a sort of a backhanded way, he's admitting that the leadership failed her. Like, hey, we got this. This guy's an asshole. We all hate him because he's all these things. He's just such a pig. We got to get him out of office. And damn it, we didn't prepare our candidate well enough to beat him.
Right. Because really, like, when you think about it, the way that those big parties, like the RNC as a nation or the DNC as an organization, they set up their platform. It probably doesn't change a lot regardless of who the nominee is. But like whenever they said, okay, we're going to take Joe out, we're going to put Kamala in, it should have been like plug and play.
Right.
And they should have. But the only issues that they hit on, like to Obama's point, is all they did was focus on Orange Man bad, and then the other issue that they hammered home on was abortion, and then Trump just had a fly swatter ready for that because he said, "Listen, Roe v. Wade has been overturned. It's now a states' rights issue. If you live in West Virginia and West Virginia wants to ban abortion, okay. But if you live in California and California wants to keep it, okay." So he basically said, if I win again, I'm not going to do anything about it because the Supreme Court's already ruled on it. And so like they focused on those two things because Kamala kept pushing over and over. He's going to Trump's going to take away your rights, yada, yada, yada. And he goes, no, I'm not. Like, look at what the Supreme Court did, which is full
something
of justices that he set up.
Which is something that he wanted to have happen anyway.
Yes.
And we can talk about that maybe at another time, whether you think that's the right approach or not. But that's something that he wanted to do in his first term.
Yes.
Couldn't get it done. Couldn't get Roe versus Wade overturned.
Right, but he was able to put
but he got two justices in that were
the way the timing worked.
Pushing.
Well, no, he had
three.
Three.
Yeah.
And he chose those three for a specific reason.
Right.
And they did end up making that decision.
That, and you're right. That argument was, well, he's going to take away your rights, ladies, and he's just, and that was probably the biggest softball of the campaign, in my opinion, because all he had to say was, "I'm not. I've said it 1,000 times. I'm not. I'm not."
And here is proof of like basically what I did. Even though he doesn't, the president doesn't command the Supreme Court, but he said,
right.
Look at what I did. It's basically a non-issue. He just said like this is not an issue that we're going to focus on in this election. So stop talking about it. And they tried to hammer him home, or they tried to hammer home the whole thing about the felonies, and then the charges get dropped. They're like, well, see, he's a criminal. It's like, well, they were dropped. He's literally not a criminal.
Technically not.
That's not how it works.
So if you had to try to put your finger, well, first of all, do you know polling numbers as it relates to the Gen Z group, voter turnout in 24 versus 20?
I don't know the turnout numbers now.
Okay. I'm just curious if those
but-
numbers were better or not.
My guess is yes, because more people voted in the 24 election than any other election in history.
Right.
And-
yeah, that could be. Could be that those numbers were better.
And I think that because people were fired up on both sides, I think.
Oh yeah.
And I think that it shows in the other polling things. So like the other thing that I wanted to touch on was Trump's approval rating with that voter bloc, particularly Gen Zers. So this is not broken down by gender. It's just broken down, 18 to 35-year-olds. Trump's approval rating in February was 55% approval, which might sound like, that's just above half. But when it comes to a president,
That's not uncommon.
that's not uncommon. It's usually not very high.
It's not going to be 80
No, it's not going to be 80%.
with any group, really.
Right. So it was 55% approval rating in February. The poll just came out for July. It's now down to 28%. So it's been cut in half. And
And what do you think that's what would you attribute that to?
I think, that it's really interesting, and I can kind of touch on the issues that I think that voting block, because I am a part of that voting
You're in
block
that group, right?
So, and I definitely think I unfortunately spend a lot of time on the internet and seeing the opinions of other young men who are in my demographic that are very pissed off at this administration. The reasons that they voted for Trump and that we turned out so hard for him was he was promising no new wars. And kind of like what we were just talking about, we spent 20 years in the Middle East and seemingly have nothing to show for it. Iraq is now controlled by Iran. Afghanistan's run by the Taliban. And we had this war between Israel and Gaza. We had this war between Russia and Ukraine. And in both instances, the United States has been heavily involved, not boots on the ground involved, but we've been sending money and guns to both Israel and Ukraine.
Yes.
And Trump has said, I'm going to end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. It's been 7 months. And I realize you cannot end a war in 24 hours, but
Well, and I think he was saying
there's been no ground made there.
Right, and I think a lot of that is that he thought he had Putin. He thought he had the relationship with Putin that he could stop that.
Yes.
And apparently that's been proven that not to be the case. And I'm not saying that he doesn't have that relationship, but obviously not an effective enough relationship to get him to stop.
Well, and also, as we know, Putin has been in office for 30 years.
Right.
Basically, since the Soviet Union collapsed, he's been at the top.
Yes.
And he, I'm not a fan of Putin, but to his credit, he is Russia first, and he puts the interest of Russia before anybody else.
Right.
And
that's what this, in his mind, that's
Right.
what this whole conflict with Ukraine's about.
right, it's
And that's
putting Russia and Russian civilians' interests in first. So then the other things, like you mentioned, the Epstein files, which has just, I don't think we'll go into it, but it doesn't look good. I'll just say it doesn't look good. And at least, regardless of anybody's opinion about what the files are, who's on the files, whatever, the way that it has been handled has been
Piss poor.
piss poor. Yes. I think another big thing is the immigration. And so that was like the big thing that I wanted to talk about today was the why Gen Zers are so volatile. Is I wanted to talk when you and I talked about this earlier this week, and I kind of gave you the teaser on like the big shift, but really it's because I wanted to talk about how Gen Zers feel like they are directionless, and this kind of plays off of your earlier episodes with Jordan about healthcare and about the job market, and it ties into immigration. And so when Trump says these illegal immigrants are coming into this country and they're taking jobs away from Americans, the left says, well, no, they're taking jobs that Americans don't want to do,
Right.
and
Yeah.
we need somebody to do those jobs.
Right.
But Gen Zers have basically lived in a life of turmoil. I don't remember 9/11. It's been talked about constantly, and from the moment that I could remember what was going on. We've talked about the war on terror, and we've talked about 9/11, and it seems like this thing that just never ended. And then when it ended in 21, it was a catastrophe. And there was the great financial crisis in 2008, which again, I wasn't directly affected by that. I didn't lose my job. I didn't lose my house or anything like that. But there was a lot of economic uncertainty for my parents. And now, I will say I am incredibly blessed and I've lived a very fortunate life. Like the things that I've had to deal with in my life that were hard do not even nearly compare to other people. I've had it very easy, but which I'm grateful for. But there's a lot of people who have not had that experience. There's people who are, minimum wage hasn't moved. And I'm not saying that raising the minimum wage is the answer to the economic problem, but like right now, the United States is the richest it has ever been. And yet the people who are in the middle, middle class, lower class, are struggling the most. And they feel like they don't have job prospects because, we were told we had to go to college. You have to go get a degree so you can get a good job so that you can buy the house. There was this blueprint kind of laid out for us. And for the most part, we followed it and it's ended up at a dead end. And now it's like, okay, what the heck, dude? Now what am I supposed to do? Because I can't get a job. I can't afford to buy a house. And it seems like the world is a little bleak. And I think that's why Gen Z is so fired up and so volatile, is that the reason, truly, I believe the reason that those approval numbers for Trump went down, they were cut in half in the span of 6 months, is because he hasn't done enough. They're expecting more. And it's not because what he's done has been quote unquote bad, but it's because, you told me you were going to deport all these illegal immigrants. You told me you were going to end the wars. You told me that you were going to get the economy under control and open up all these jobs.
Right.
And granted, you cannot fix all of the country's problems in 6 months, but like they want him.
But that is how he talked.
To go hard.
But he did talk about
a
lot of these things being taken care of like almost immediately. Yep. Like that was the talk that was the narrative that he was putting out there. And I think that he's faced far more legal pushback than I think his team anticipated.
Yeah.
Wrong. I don't know. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, so I can't speak to that, but I know that he has gotten a ton of pushback on just about every damn thing that he has tried to do.
Well, yeah,
from tariffs to
every other day,
immigration to whatever, whatever he's tried to do.
Like every other day, you see a headline: federal judge in Colorado puts an injunction on President Trump's executive order.
And then the next day, it's the Trump administration DOJ is going to fire this judge.
Yes, and
I think I will say for me, and this you can speak up and say if this applies to you, but for me, I think there's too much focus on stupid shit.
I agree.
And I don't think people would be so pissed off about this Epstein thing, right? If it wasn't, like he said, I'm going to release all the unredacted files on the JFK assassination, on the Martin Luther King Jr. assassination, on the Bobby Kennedy assassination, and the Epstein files. He said he was going to do all this stuff, right? Yeah. And then, a month into the presidency, you've got the attorney general out in the Rose Garden saying, oh, here's a teaser. This is Epstein file number part one.
Yeah. And has all of these, right-wing influencers that they're parading out these big old binders.
Yeah.
And they're like, look, this is the president being transparent.
Correct.
This is promises made, promises kept.
Yes.
Now.
And then all of a sudden you got, you get guys like Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, people that I had some respect for, for seemingly to be on the right path. Like you come out and say, no, he did commit suicide, and there is no client list. Now, I know enough about what happened just from having watched a couple of documentaries on it. I suspect that there is a client list.
Yeah.
Why are you now telling us there isn't? And then a week goes by. And Trump's getting all kinds of pressure. And then he says, okay, well, I want the Department of Justice to release all of the, not the client list, but I don't know if it was transcript.
Yeah, whatever.
From trials or whatever. And then you got Maxwell in prison who's saying, wait, hold on a second. If he didn't do anything, why am I sitting in prison for
20 years?
Supposedly aiding and abetting this predator
for trafficking.
For trafficking women.
Right.
Why am I in prison?
Right.
And now all of a sudden she wants to talk to the Department of Justice. They apparently have agreed to do that. I think it happened today. They were supposed to talk to her. I think today, but I don't know. But so it's kind of like it's just been messy.
Yeah.
just messy.
So
just,
far it's been mishandled.
And dumb shit. Like, we can talk about the bombing of Iran, whether you like it, don't like it. And that's a whole, like, there's a lot of layers to this whole thing and a lot of roads you can go down. I don't think we need to go down that road. But that smacks in the face of what people were told. I'm not going to get in a new war. People look at us getting involved in that as exactly that.
Yes. Because you don't bomb countries that you're not at war with.
Correct. And I'm just going to say this. If we think that that's over,
it's not over.
You're naive if you think that that's over because of that. It's not over. Something will happen.
Yes. No. Yeah.
Iran isn't going to sit back and take that shit and be like, "Oh, okay, sorry, yeah, we were out of line."
Yeah. No, you guys were totally right.
Yeah.
Because they
not going to happen.
They are historically known for bowing down to the West.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So I just think, like, for me personally, I just think that there's been too much focus on just silly stuff. And it's like, I get, I understand what he's trying to do with the tariffs. And, I don't try to get too caught up in the headlines on the mainstream media at all. But, they keep wanting to scare people by saying, inflation's coming. We haven't felt it yet, but it's coming. It's coming. Just hold on.
But it's been here. And
yes.
And the one big beautiful bill is only going to make inflation worse. And, adding to the, like, printing money en masse and spending more than we have is going to drive inflation.
Bad idea.
And
that's another thing.
It's just going to keep getting worse.
And that's another thing that I feel like is just the conversation about Jerome Powell and Trump just, calling him names and saying he's stupid. I don't know if the guy's stupid or not. I would assume he's not stupid considering he has the position that he does.
Sure.
And then saying he's going to fire him. The president can't fire him. And by the way, Don, you're the one that put him in the job that he has.
Yeah.
All that Joe Biden did was just kind of let him stay there.
Right.
And so,
but he will be done next year.
Correct.
He will be out next
year. But like that is just like a stupid, I don't know if that was media fueled. I mean, Trump himself has made numerous, I'm going to say, ridiculous comments about Jerome Powell. It's not. I don't know Jerome Powell. I don't have any personal opinion of the guy. I have an economics degree. I have my own personal opinion about
the Federal Reserve.
I also have my own personal opinion about what ought to happen with interest rates in this current situation. But I don't sit in his chair, so it's not up to me.
Right.
So, but. Why is there this like feud between him and Donald Trump? It's just the dumbest freaking thing. It's just stupid.
I don't think that the situation with Jerome Powell is unique to him. Like, as we have seen, Trump is very quick to just cut people off.
Oh yeah.
And like, you get on his bad side, even if it's a very minor disagreement, he kind of casts you to the side.
Right.
And
yes, we've seen that many times.
And I think that's like, there are people who fall in line because they want to stay close to him for political reasons and future career opportunities, and because of that, they're not willing to tell him, Mr. President, you're wrong, or you need to kind of ease up on XYZ. And
right.
I do think that Trump has done a lot of great things, and I think that he is his own worst enemy in a world where
that's very well said, because he is
in a world where he probably thinks that his biggest enemy is the media and constantly bashing him, and the way that they have just not stopped talking about him for 10 years, and it's just been constant bashing for 10 years. Like, I can see why he probably feels that way, but also he brings it on himself when he attacks these people. Like, I'm a big fan of Thomas Massie down in Kentucky. He's a congressman from Kentucky. And Thomas Massie originally, like when he first ran for Congress the first time, he's made this promise to his constituents: I will never, ever vote for a bill that adds debt to the deficit. And so when this one big beautiful bill gets rolled out and it has this huge deficit addition to the deficit, he goes, okay, I'm not voting for it. And then all of a sudden now Trump's like, well, I'm going to primary you, and we're going to get you out of there.
And you got all these people on Twitter that are the big Trump people
Yes.
just kicking the shit out of Thomas Massey and saying that, oh, he voted for illegal immigration. He voted for this. He voted for that. And it's like,
he voted.
do your damn homework and
he
understand
voted
why
against
why he voted the way he
deficit.
did. Correct.
Right. And that's why he has been such a huge proponent single issue bills.
Yes,
because he's talked about this on Theo Vaughn's podcast which is called This Past Weekend.
Yes.
He's talked about it with Tucker Carlson.
Yes.
That you have these huge, big, beautiful bills.
These omnibus bills
These
that are
omnibus
just a
bills
disaster.
that, like, the congressman from Tennessee, he wants to fund, he wants to, like, the majority of Republicans want to fund the border wall. Good. That's great. But then it also includes, there was a provision in the one big, beautiful bill that said that the federal government can't regulate AI for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Well, that stayed in there. And that's kind of scary.
And these omnibus bills are exactly how the mating habits of North American brown squirrels get funded.
Right.
That's how they get their $40 million.
Because, I mean, when
that's
you're...
how that crap happens.
When you're signing a bill that has earmarked trillions of dollars, what's another 40 million here, 50 million there, and a couple billion to, whatever? Like, those are just drops in the bucket of the spending problem. And so when you have a guy like Thomas Massey who stands on principle and says, I'm not going to... I might agree with some things in this bill, but it's also full of a lot of things that I don't agree with, mainly the budget. And for that reason, I can't vote for it. I think that we need more people like Thomas Massey who are willing to, even under the threat of being primaried or in...
And he doesn't give a shit. Primary him.
Yeah.
It's happened before and he's won.
He is immensely popular in his district.
He doesn't care.
I don't even think last year, I don't even think anybody ran against him. And
I'm not sure.
His approval rating amongst his voters in Kentucky is so high. He's super popular
because he appears to be genuine. He appears to be honest, and he lives the way he talks.
Yes,
like it's not just things. He doesn't just say things. He does what he says he's going to do. He lives it too. He walks the walk. And I think that's one of the differences. And I think that's why the people who know him, who vote for him, who live with him, continue to vote for him.
Yeah, and I think that they should. I don't think I think we're going to see it in 2026. There's going to be millions of dollars spent against him in 2026, mm-hmm. and I just, I hope that his voters stand strong and stand for him, and they realize that he is doing the right thing. In the face of adversity, he's a principled
individual.
Thing.
Yeah,
he's doing what he believes to be the right thing.
To the point about the budget and the deficit, I can remember when I first kind of started being aware of politics, and I was in high school, so it would have been when Reagan was president, that like they used to talk about during presidential debates. They talked about balancing the budget.
Yeah,
that used to be a thing.
Yes. Well, and
I mean, states do it.
Yes. Well, they have to.
Right.
It is against the law for states to take on debt.
But that used to be a conversation that took place, and a topic, and candidates had to say, had to address that and say, these are the things that I'm going to do that will balance the budget. Now it's just like, we don't even care.
No.
We're what, $3+ trillion?
I mean, every year.
Yeah.
They say that we add $1 trillion to the debt every 100 days. And it is at, like, I think $50 trillion.
I mean, that's just like, we just don't care.
Well, I mean, the voters kind of care. They should care a little bit more.
But the problem is, I think what has happened. You're right. Voters should care, but I think we almost get sabotaged by all of these other. Look at this over here. Look at this topic.
Yeah.
Look at that topic.
A lot of distractions.
Look at this, and those become far more important mm-hmm. to candidates than the deficit conversation, because I think they're easier to, especially like in this current state that we're in, with Trump being a part of this part of the play, is that hey, he's going to do this. He hates immigrants, or he is going to take your rights away, ladies, or whatever, and those become the topic of conversation, and the voters get just And I think there's, despite that, I will still say that despite the voter turnout numbers in November, which I honestly am surprised that they were what they were.
Yeah.
Given the level of just constant, it just seems like it's chaos.
Yeah.
In the political spectrum anymore, like just chaos. And I can see people in that Gen Z group being like, I just don't care.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that there's like two schools of thought for Gen Z, where there are the people who they're so checked out now because of all the chaos. They're like, I can't keep track of it. It's disturbing to think about what this country, like where we're headed. And so a lot of what Gen Z likes to do is live in the moment. And so they're not big planners. It's just like, what can I do today to make my day a little bit easier or a little bit better, more enjoyable? And I urge them to stop thinking that way. Like, I'm Gen Z, but like now I'm 26. I have an almost 2-year-old. I just bought a house, and you have to be ready for the future. And this country, like, because the people who are in power now, who I think most voters, whether you are left or right, somewhere in the middle, whatever, I think most people can agree that the people at the top of our government are very disconnected from reality and how normal people live in this country. And
100%.
The younger generations are going to have to take the mantle soon. And I urge the lawmakers who are in power today to get us at least moving in the right, there's a lot of problems. And
we don't need any more 80-year-old people.
Well, yeah, thank God Mitch McConnell's not going to run for
in
re-election.
Washington, D.C.
But, you think about, again, we're 6 months into this year, into the new Congress, whatever number of Congress we're on. We've already had, I think, 3 members of Congress die in office this year. And not all of them are 80 years old. Some of them had a health condition or whatever.
Right. But there are plenty of, and I say 80, but there's plenty of people that are on Capitol Hill that have been there. That's their career.
Yes.
They are career politicians. And that was never the intention.
Right.
When this country was founded, that was never the intention. Serve and then go back and live in your community.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because
and there's so much.
It used to be people would run for office, and it was because I want to serve my country and I want to improve my country. Because what the goal should be for every single individual, and primarily like you get married and you have a family, and you should say, I'm going to leave behind a better world for my kids so that it's an even better world for my grandkids, and so on and so forth. And I think that people used to run for office to say, I'm going to make this country a better place to live for my children and my grandchildren, etc. It's a duty to my country to improve, for my fellow countrymen, for my neighbor, I'm going to improve the country. I'm going to serve my country. And then nowadays it's like, well, it's a status symbol, I'm a congressman and I get to go to all these fancy dinner parties. And like,
yep.
If you ask anybody who's ever worked in DC, even if they weren't there very long, like, it's like the whole frickin' town is just one giant cocktail party. And
you listen to Tucker Carlson talk about it, who's a guy that he's a couple years younger than I am.
Yeah.
Who has been around it for the majority of his life because of his.
He's lived in DC pretty much his
entire life, and his father had some involvement in it too. So he's around it for so many years. You listen to him talk about it, and this is nothing. Whether you like Tucker or not isn't the point, but just to listen, hear him talk about.
Well, if anybody wants to hear about like the true vulgarity of DC, they should listen to one of his most recent episodes with former Congressman George Santos, who was expelled.
I've got that bookmarked. I do want to listen to that.
So he was he was expelled from Congress for fraud, like identity. They called it identity fraud.
Yeah.
And now he's going to go to jail for 7 years. But whether he is a Republican, so whether you're on that side of the aisle or not, but like he's already lost his job. He's got kicked out of Congress. He's going to jail for 7 years. He has no reason to lie about what these people are doing. So it's kind of like his last hurrah, his last tell-all before he goes off to jail or goes off to prison. Some of the things that he talks about, it is just like everybody, it's all about status. It's all about who you know. And
It's disturbing shit, honestly.
there is something truly evil about DC and what it does to your mind. Because like I like to think that, you know, whenever a newcomer politician comes around, they're like, I'm gonna go to DC, I'm gonna clean up the swamp, and you know, I'm gonna get this country back on track. And then they get there and they're placed into a system that has been entrenched for 50, 60 years, like really since the administrative state has taken over,
Right.
which we should do a whole separate episode on that type of stuff.
Yeah.
They go to DC with mostly good intentions, and then they get there, and the congressmen who've been there for 20, 30 years, they go, yeah, we don't play ball like that. You're going to play by our rules, and if you don't fall in line, we're going to make sure that you get primaried next year or 2 years from now, and you're going to be gone.
And in a way, it's very easy for me to see how that happens because of the perks. You know, you said the dinner parties, the status, the networking opportunities, which lead to future possibilities for employment.
Even when you're out of politics, you get, you know, a nice lobbying job or whatever.
And getting to walk into any restaurant and get a table.
Yeah.
Go to the bar, get a free drink or 2 or 3 or 4. The suits, there's perks. There's a lot of good perks. And in our world today, those things matter to people.
Yeah.
It's not an indictment on anybody that takes whether you like materialistic things or not. I'm just simply saying those things are shiny and they're very easy it's very easy for you to get addicted to it. And when you get a taste of it,
it's hard to put it down.
You don't want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose that.
Right.
I mean,
that's why they vote to increase their own salary every year.
And why they don't have to follow the same rules about healthcare coverage that you and I do.
No, they have phenomenal coverage. They have pensions.
No, it's and it's crazy too. It's like I want to talk just for a second, and then we can start to probably wind this down a little bit. But I want to talk a little bit about the media's role in all of this, because I think the media plays a huge role in not the perks of living in DC and being on the Hill, but how the media plays a role in creating narratives that are intended to affect people's opinions of either a topic, a person, whatever. So are you aware in the last couple of days that you're aware about this report that has come out that now says that the Obama administration was part of an assassination plot against Donald Trump in 2017?
No.
Okay. That's something on the news cycle.
Wow. I mean, no, I knew that the stuff with Obama was coming out about like the Russia hoax stuff.
Yeah, that also has dropped.
Yeah.
Now but
I did not hear about
this is another
plot.
thing. Like he was somehow a part of some plot to assassinate Donald Trump. Another story that hit the news cycle was the Obama FBI run by James Comey. I have an opinion about him. It's not good. That when they did their investigation into Hillary Clinton private email server and the emails and all that was just really glossed over, and they really didn't investigate her. And now that is now coming back to light, rearing its ugly head again, that we need to look into that.
Yeah.
And I think, and this is why, like I said, like when I talk about this, like this chaotic scene that is this sphere of chaos that seems to be circling the political world anymore. But the media really drives that.
Yes.
In my opinion.
I agree.
And I think either it's, whether it's mainstream media doing their thing trying to push against Donald Trump because they don't like him. We all know that. That's not news. Yeah. Or it's like the social media world. We know that, Facebook has their thing, but, there's a lot of stuff out there on Twitter that's sort of some of the, hey, we've got this like special story, then you're not going to see this on NBC News tonight, but this is breaking news, and that creates a swill in and of itself in people that are like, I get a lot of my news from that source.
Yeah, me too.
So that creates a whole environment too of people going, oh, so now what's next? What's next? What is Trump on the Epstein list? Was he on the client list? I thought there wasn't a list, but now he's on the list. Is he on a list? I don't know. it's interesting, and I think it's kind of it's sad to me that we as citizens and voters can't get accurate information about the shit that matters and should matter to us and the things that we care about.
Yeah.
That we care about. We can't get that information.
Well, I think that's because like over the last 20 or so years, news has shifted from being informational to being entertainment
And opinion. And it's
opinion. And opinion based. But like they realized that, catchy headlines that draw you in, even if the headline is a little bit misleading for what the actual story is.
People are clicking on the story.
It's all about clicks. It's all about views. And they get people fired up. And people who are fired up are the ones who get out to vote. People who are fired up are the ones who donate to politicians. And like people who, you even see it on just any social media platform. You post something that is even a little bit controversial, you have people fighting in your comments back and forth, and that drives engagement, which of course the social media platform loves that. The algorithm loves that.
Yeah.
And so everything is being driven by confrontation, by divisiveness. And it's crazy.
And I wish, I as a person that grew up during the Cold War, when I sit and think about how the political environment has changed and how the media environment has changed, it's crazy to see. I just feel like the divisiveness anymore. It's like when I was in high school during the Cold War, it was like, we hate the commies. Everybody hates the commies. That wasn't a question. It wasn't like, everybody hates the commies.
Right.
It wasn't like, do you like the commies? What side are you on? There wasn't a question. There was not a question. Nobody debated that. We all hated the commies. And you're not going to get me to say it. Now today, you have a war that's been going on for what now? 4 years? The Ukraine-Russia thing?
3 years.
3 years? And for all intent and purpose, Russia is essentially still a Soviet Union.
Yes.
More or less. They still call themselves that, but
yeah,
it really is.
Yes, it
is. But now it's like, what side are you on? I'm gonna fly the Ukraine flag on my profile picture on Facebook.
But that's not. But that's not the same thing as being like anti-communist. Is like, to me, those people who.
But I get, my point is, you got to pick a side.
Oh yeah, yes. To that point, everybody has to pick a side.
You got to pick it. Now we have to pick a side on everything.
And there's no
third
option. It's either you support Ukraine, and
you're an asshole if you disagree with me.
Right.
That's the part I don't like.
If you're like me and I go, I think that the war in Ukraine is disgusting, and there's literally hundreds of thousands of people who have died on both sides. The stories that are coming out of Ukraine every single day, it's insidious what's going on over there. And you could say, I don't want them to fight at all. I don't support Ukraine because I am America first, and Ukraine is, newsflash, not part of America. So
yeah,
but
I don't support either one of them.
But then if you say that, they're like, oh, well, then you must like Putin and Russia, and you're getting your news from, Russian news sources, and you're an enemy of the United States. And it's like, I'm
the furthest thing.
I just think that maybe we shouldn't be giving them money and guns to perpetuate the war.
It's like giving money to Israel to fight the war against Hamas.
Right.
We give money to. We've been giving money to Israel for decades. What they use it for, I'm not really sure.
Well, they say that 80% of it has to be spent with American defense contractors, which is silly because if I gave you $100 and I said, well, you have to spend 80 of it at my store, is that like, that's not
$80. That's not $100.
Right.
I get it. Like giving, like that one seems like, okay, well, it's not like we're appropriating additional funds to Israel to fight the terrorists.
To fight Hamas specifically.
We're not, right.
But no, but there is a provision that like every year they automatically get $3 billion.
It's $3 billion, yeah. $3 billion for whatever. But, and that one seems to be like, well, and it has become a flashpoint too.
Yeah.
Like, what side are you on?
Well, yeah, because,
And it's
if you
like,
don't support, again, if you take my position, that's like, I don't support the war in Ukraine. If you say I don't support the war in Israel or in Gaza, they're like, oh, then you must be on the side of the terrorists. And it's
Right.
like, no, I'm anti-war, and I'm anti-American taxpayer dollars funding
yeah,
war.
we have been.
I don't care where in the world the war is.
And you can go back, you go all the way back to Vietnam,
oh my goodness, yeah,
and what a shit show that was. What kind of bullshit information was being fed to the president in why we needed to get involved in that conflict?
right,
Okay, so it goes back that far, and there was a bunch of shady shit that went on. Not good stuff.
right.
It was a mess. And I feel like that was like for our country, one of those, was kind of a really interesting point in time where people were just like, especially younger people were like, why are we fighting this? Like, why are my friends getting drafted and having to go over there and do this? For what?
Right.
And what are we going to get out of it at the end of the day?
Yeah, because at that point, like the whole like the Red Scare. I mean, the Red Scare started even before World War II.
Yes.
But like, it really got heavy after World War II.
Right.
And so for like 20 years leading up to, or I guess you could say 20, 30 years, like smack dab in the middle of Vietnam, there's these young people who they're the ones being drafted, and their buddies and their neighbors and their friends that they went to school with are getting killed in Vietnam. And they're like, I've never met a communist. They've never affected me personally. So why are we doing this?
Well,
And
the War Machine said we had to
because the War Machine
be a part
said
of
we
it.
had to.
We had to be a part of it.
And we should do a whole episode about just like about stuff like that. About like the 20th century. Like I think we could talk for hours about that.
Yeah, we could.
But I think that the sentiment, kind of going back to what we were talking about originally about Gen Z, like the sentiment that those college-aged kids in the Vietnam era felt about the Vietnam War, I think that's how Gen Zers are feeling today. But that resentment is geared towards the government. That it's like, if you guys aren't willing to do something right now to make my life better, like I honestly think that, like, more candidates like Mamdani who are pushing actual socialism in America, we're going to see more
That might gain
candidates.
traction.
Yes, I think that we're going to see more people like that. And then on the right side, like on the right wing side, these young men are feeling very, this, like with the DEI stuff, or, you should be ashamed to be white and to be a man, and those sort of things. Like those young men, those are the young men that flocked to Donald Trump because they were like, he said, support your country, save your country from these people who are coming into this country, taking your jobs. They're changing the makeup of the nation, and our country's not getting better. And so I think that on both sides, the right and the left of the younger generation, they go, this system that we're operating in right now, it ain't working for me. And it's very obvious that, and it's not just the government, it's the big corporations too, that they don't pay people shit. Wages are, they say, well, wages are higher than they've ever been, but your dollar has never been worth less.
Correct.
And so it's like,
Correct.
yeah, you might go get a $50,000 a year salary, but like that's nothing compared to
I think the
what it
dollar
needed to be.
I think the
or what it
dollar
used to be.
today closed versus the euro at like 85 cents.
That's abysmal. And that's supposed to be like
85 or 86
That's supposed to
cents.
be the world reserve currency.
Correct.
It's supposed to be the most valuable piece of paper in the world.
Right. So you can tell me that my wages have gone up 1.7% versus 2 years ago or 3 years ago or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But you're spot on, because it's worth less. And effective tax rates and what have you, interest rates being what they are, affordability of things being what they are. It's just, like you said, younger folks are being priced out of the American dream.
Yeah.
And that's the killer, I think, for a lot of people. It's like, I think young people, like you said, there was this blueprint, and I think those people who wouldn't want to have their own home?
Right.
Who wants to rent a freaking apartment?
Yeah,
maybe somebody does. I don't know. But,
Sure.
And that's fine if they do.
But in a world where people never really own anything, I think that's dangerous, because
Yeah, well, I mean-
if you have a renter's economy where like you don't own,
It is dangerous.
You don't even own the place where you put your bed and you sleep every single night. You don't own that.
You can make an argument that if you own a home, you don't own it either, even when
Sure,
it's
sure. But at least
property taxes.
at least you can get equity in it, and it means something.
It does have value.
You can't sell your apartment.
It's the only asset you have that increases in value.
Right, correct. That's where I was going. Is that like, you know, in today's world, like especially my demographic, 18 to 35, like more people are renting than ever. Prices for homes are through the roof. Interest rates are through the roof. Like, you know, the prices of homes since like 2019 has almost doubled.
Right.
It's asinine.
Yes,
And so like
it is.
people aren't buying homes. At least young people aren't buying homes, and they don't own their car. Either they have, you know, a car doesn't mean anything. You can go to a used car lot and buy a shitty $1,000 car and it'd be paid off and you drive it till the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
But like how you were talking about with politicians getting addicted to material things, people want to have a nice car. The only reason you have a nice car is because the bank lets you use it.
Yeah. When they started doing the lease programs in cars, now, you know, you can go get a lease for a couple $100 a month and have a brand new car every 3 years.
Right. And I think that there is something very dangerous in people not owning anything, and that's leading to the anger from the younger generation. And even not to continue to bring up Tucker Carlson, but he just had Charlie Kirk on, and you know, Charlie Kirk, whether you like his politics or not, he goes to college campuses and he talks to people.
He takes them on one and all.
Yes.
He will take them on.
And-
yes, he will debate anybody.
And what he does better than a lot of people is he listens to their concerns, whether they agree with him politically or not.
Right.
They say, you know, Charlie, this is what I'm dealing with, and these are the struggles that I'm experiencing as a 20-something-year-old. And so he was on Tucker Carlson, and he was talking about these buy now, pay later schemes, like through Klarna, Affirm, and Afterpay. And so, like, you can literally order food on DoorDash and get it set up in installments of 4 payments. So, like, and it's interest free, or like some of them are interest free. When you set up your account, I don't know if they do a credit check or whatever, but like people are getting sucked into this, like how I was telling you, Gen Zers live for the now. They don't care about the debt because it's like, you know, they already took on tens of thousands of dollars to go to college.
Right.
And then, you know, they're told, well, you got to get a credit card so you can build up your credit. So one day you can buy a car and a house. And so they get a credit card and they go, well, I can just like buy concert tickets and, you know,
pay my cell phone bill on
cell
that.
phone bill. I can buy a new Xbox or PlayStation,
Yeah.
or whatever game.
And I make the
you know.
minimum payment of $19 a month.
Right. Sure.
I'm not really ever intending to pay it off, but yeah.
Over the course of paying off that credit card bill, you're going to pay like double what it actually was.
Yeah.
But at least I don't have to pay for it right now. And I just think that we need to give people a sense of being a part of something.
Yeah. Well, along the lines of are you aware of the fact that the FHA just approved that you can, if you want to buy a home, your rent payment history will be a part of building your credit and showing that you're
I mean, that's how. Is that, you think that's a bad?
No, I think it's a good thing.
Okay, I was gonna say. I was gonna say.
No,
I don't think that's
that was
such a bad
never.
thing.
That was my point. Was that you have people that like the idea is to try to get people out of being forever renters.
Sure.
Because that's never really helped. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, but you're paying your rent on time, you're paying your bills on time. The only ones that matter are your car loan, your student loans, your credit card bill, right? Your cell phone bill. Like if you're paying those things on time, those are things that are going toward affecting your credit score. But the rent payment stuff never really had any impact on that.
Sure.
So now they're saying that it will.
That's okay.
And I think that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Yeah. I did not hear about that. That's that's interesting.
Yeah. I think that's a really good thing. A really, really good thing.
Yeah. Well, because that's the thing is like for my wife and I in our journey to buying a house, like we were looking at houses and we're like, you know, we make X amount, houses cost Y amount. And when you go on Zillow or Realtor.com, you can like plug in,
yeah,
if I buy this house, how much is the monthly payment? And you go, well, I can afford the monthly payment. I pay more than that in rent, or just about that in rent, you know, rather than pissing away that money every single month on a place you'll never own, an apartment. Or you could put that money into a house that one day you'll have equity in, and you can be there long term. And so like that's what we were doing. It's like, you know, we can make that payment, and that's great. But it's like, well, but you need to be able to save all this money, and a lot of people cannot save up money right now.
That's the thing I was going to say. You know, the rent payments having a you know, your rent payment history having a positive impact on your ability to buy a home is one thing, and it is a good thing. But the other part of that is being able to put away money to come up with some kind of a down payment.
Right. Yeah. I think that's probably the largest barrier to entry to buying a house right now is a down payment, and especially because there was, before we bought the house we have that we actually are officially owners of now, we did put an offer in on another house, and we got I don't know if we got outbid, but they chose the other offer because they offered to pay in cash. And it's like, was that actually a, you know, somebody who just sold their house so they had, you know, $300,000 to put towards a new house? Or, you know,
there was a trend of that going on over the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, yeah, there were a lot of people who their house nearly doubled in value, and then they go, well, you know, let's just get a new house, and I can sell it, and I make a ton of money off of it, and I have all this money towards a new house.
Yep.
And so they were like, that was a thing where current homeowners who are looking, some people were selling their house just because they could. Some people were legitimately moving, or they needed a bigger house, whatever.
Right.
But new home buyers or first-time home buyers were at a crazy disadvantage from people who already owned a house, were able to leverage that asset into buying their next house.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then also, well, what I was going to say is that the other potential situation was, it may not have been somebody who just sold a house and had cash on hand, but like BlackRock and Vanguard buying up all these single-family homes.
Yep.
Which do you know why that they're doing? Like why are, because like BlackRock, I mean, my 401k, some of it goes to Vanguard for investing in my retirement or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, do you know why firms like that are buying single family homes?
I don't.
So I
mean, I have a suspicion, but go ahead.
Okay, so I guess you can confirm if this is along the lines of what you were thinking. But like, they're buying these homes, and obviously these are multi-billion-dollar corporations. They just have money to spend, and so they buy a single-family house. You know, let's just say $300,000, whatever, and they sit on it for a couple of years. They just pay, because they don't need to run utilities in the house, so they just pay the property taxes, which is a couple thousand dollars a year. And because of the trend with houses just increasing in value very quickly rather than steadily, they'll just hold on to it for a couple of years, maybe spend $20,000 in property tax for those couple of years, and then they will sell it and make a crazy bit.
Double the money that they put into it. Which is just, that is exactly what I thought.
Okay.
It's exactly what I thought that they would be doing, which is
like that should be,
that just seems nefarious to me, like very nefarious, especially considering what the inventory on houses for sale has been like over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a nefarious, like, bullshit move, in my opinion.
It's one thing to be,
and it's like they're like private equity firms, right? It's like they got all this freaking money, and they have to keep investing so that they can manage to take advantage of every tax benefit that they can,
right?
And give the people that threw their money into the pot a hefty paycheck at the end of the day.
Well, and then I also heard, I can't remember where I saw this, but they were saying that these corporations, and it's not just corporations, like it was a trend, companies like BlackRock and Vanguard were doing this, and then there are people who they just have money to invest, and they were doing it themselves, and they were like establishing like shell companies, and what they were doing to purchase these homes, not only were they just buying them, they might rent it, they might just sit on it and sell it in a couple of years and make some profit, but they were also, whatever state they were buying the house in, they were also requesting a homestead exemption for the house. And so like the property taxes are much lower on when you have a homestead situation.
And there's supposed to be strict rules on whether or not you get the homestead exemption.
Well, thank goodness supposed to be. Ohio just, I forget what it was exactly, but I think with this last big budget bill that Ohio just passed, that they increase the requirements for getting a
How to-
homestead
how to get the
exemption. And I think
exemption.
it's for that reason specifically. It's like you have to prove that you're actually living there. It's
yeah.
not just some house you bought in the middle of nowhere to make money off of in a few years.
Yeah. It's and that's, and these are some conversations down the road that we can have about corporations and what really runs a machine in this country. As much as I'd like to think that everybody in this country has the same opportunity, the reality of it is that that's not the case.
No, it's
unfortunately, we were all led to believe that was the case, but it's not. But yeah, all right. Well, we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we did actually.
Covered a lot of
got
ground.
into a lot
Did
of
you
stuff.
cover everything? Talk about everything you wanted to talk about?
I think so.
Okay. Well, appreciate you having you on. It was good to have you here. Like the episode. Comment if there's things that you want to hear. Topics for future episodes. We still need subscribers. I think we're like hovering around 9. I think we need
Oh,
some.
wow. Okay,
we need
to get that up.
subscribers. We need to get that
So
number up.
definitely
But,
subscribe. Share with your friends.
But thank you for being here, Brant.
No, I had a great time.
It was a good time, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.